we're all set. So we are back for another episode.
Yay! Boy, I missed this.
Yeah, and we've been giving a lot of like praise to a lot of shows, so that's great. You know, kudos, all that. But there's a couple shows we watched this week where I'm gonna probably like talk a little bit about them and be like, they're not my personal favorites. So
Yeah, we saw a couple. We thought we'd try something different. It's not the usual kind. Most of the shows we picked were pretty mainstream. I think weren't they? Most of the shows.
yeah, I mean, I know Ted Lasso is probably about as mainstream as you can get right now in terms of critical darling and
these
everything.
two we read. These two we're doing this week are on the air, but they're more fringe kind of on the air. So as far as I know, I think I didn't even know about them until Airto told me. So
Schmigadoon, I think, is on CBS.
yeah,
Right?
yeah. So one of
CBS.
the major networks. So
Yeah.
I don't know where the other one is.
What the other one was Ghost. That one was on I cannot remember.
Yeah, they're both like successful. I mean, I gotta say this first of all, they both got on the air.
Yeah.
Kudos,
Yeah.
for that. It's hard to get on the air. You guys, whoever created these things that I don't particularly like, got on the air. So, bravo. I mean, that's a major accomplishment. And those of you who are going to watch it could see what got on the air. Maybe it got on there because they're both very different from traditional sitcoms. But the problem for me was they're different from traditional sitcoms, but they feel derivative and unimaginative and kind of predictable to me, both of them. But let's talk about them.
Yeah,
there were good things about them too, so we'll talk about that.
Yeah, in terms of like, I read the script of Schmigadoon. So we did Schmigadoon and Ghost. Those are the two shows we did, and they're both new shows this season. This year,
they're both on the air, and they both got short orders. Which the networks do even now. But they both made the air, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah. I mean, it for sure. I mean, in terms of, and I wish, and they're continuing. I wish them all the best. But in terms of like entertainment, like just coming from an entertainment standpoint, reading Schmigadoon to me was better than watching the show. I wasn't really super in love with the script, but I was like, okay, this is interesting. We'll see how it goes. And then when you watch the show, they veered a little bit from the script to what they had in the first episode, but it wasn't, to me, fun. It just was like I'm not a huge musicals fan. Not that I don't enjoy some musicals, but I'm not really into it. And I didn't love the direction, the way it was staged, and like, I don't know, the visuals and stuff. It just didn't really appeal to me. The story was pretty much the same, and that actually, in terms of story, is pretty inventive. I like the idea that a couple that's struggling try to figure out a way. They go to like a camp to rekindle their lost passion, or what they feel is lost passion. At least one of them, they have the dichotomy of two people not agreeing as where the relationship really is.
Right. The woman was more into the relationship and was the romantic, and the guy was kind of like a stick in the mud. I mean, I didn't really care for him at all.
Yeah. So he is more reluctant and just kind of thinks that their relationship is fine, where it is, where she's
they're already planning that his eye is wandering and all these things. So I think he thinks it's fine where it is because he plans to depart.
Yeah, he's probably not as serious about it as she is, And then that's the whole premise of the show, is they go to this couples retreat to try to like work on their relationship, but in the middle of that, they veer off the beaten path and stumble into a town that they actually end up they can't leave until they find true love, so then it tests their relationship amongst these people who sing and dance.
So it's a parody actually of Brigadoon, and I can barely remember Brigadoon, but I remember liking it because I was a kid when I saw it, really young. But I was hoping that when I read it, I found it boring. Frankly, the script bored me, and I just kept counting the pages. Then I'm being honest. That's how I was going with it. I felt like the setup took forever. The setup established that they were a couple.
Hmm.
You could have cut right to the retreat and just had them have an argument or a discussion or something. Or something to establish that they're a couple in trouble.
Hmm.
And you would have saved yourself about 10 pages. And it's just like crazy how long they took setting it up. Now, maybe
Hmm.
they
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
from the
especially in the
start,
script.
but
Yeah.
it took a long time to set up who this couple was before they ever got to the retreat. And then the retreat took long before they got to Schmigadoon, which was the whole point of it. So I just think it was structured poorly, and everything was, to me, was trite and predictable, and I didn't like anything about it. I honestly have to say I didn't like anything about the script. I would never have pushed it forward, but it got pushed forward and got made. So again, that's a huge accomplishment by I don't like everything on the air, so it's all right that I don't like this one. But I was hoping that the dancing and the singing and the music was going to be outstanding because
Hmm.
that could save it for me. Because sometimes when you read a musical, uh, they are thin, so because
Yeah,
they
yeah,
give
of
room for
course.
the music and the dancing and all that. So I was thinking, well, maybe it's going to be made because it has some wonderful songs and some wonderful dancing and some
Right.
wonderful but I didn't see it. I just read the script, and then Airto did see it and thought the script was better than the execution. So
Yeah.
I hate to say this, but I trust Airto's judgment a lot. So I'm not going to watch it. I'm not. I'm through with Schmigadoons.
Yeah,
Sorry.
well, to be honest, when you pointed, it's a good fact that you pointed out about the setup time. Not only them at the hospital, but then later on with the
Mhm.
Schmigadoon people, it was like they mentioned, it was like I don't know, like 10 pages of just introducing characters singing.
It was awful. It was just like I honestly
Can't
believe
believe
I don't
that
know
got
who the
made.
who the creators are, and maybe
Yeah.
I'm totally wrong, but I don't think they've really studied structure because man, you wouldn't structure something like this so heavy on the setup and so little time with the story relative to the setup and such. So um gosh, you didn't need any of that setup even. And the
Hmm.
setup wasn't that entertaining. So why? Why
Yeah.
would you do that? I don't
I mean, you
know.
could do one or two people and then move on, to something more move the story forward rather than just the
Yeah,
singing and the song, the introduction of the different townspeople. Yeah,
yeah.
so that actually was not the worst part of it to me. It was not the boring part. And the song stuff, when I'm listening to it in my head, I don't know what melody they're using, so I'm just like reading lyrics, and they're kind of, whatever, it's fine. But I
But you
just,
saw it then you saw it.
yeah.
Was the music is the music kind of the tunes and the sound and the movement and the rhythm and such? I mean, was there something special about the music to you?
No, no, no. I mean, it didn't blow me away, in terms
Mm,
of like, oh, and I haven't seen Brigadoon. Now that you bring that up, I totally forgot that even, I didn't know that that was a parody of it. I just kind of went
yeah.
in completely blind to the history of it, just
Mhm.
like, okay, well, let's see what this is. It was just that, when you read a script, one thing I noticed is when you read a script, then you become aware of the acting. If you just watch the show, it's hard to kind of pinpoint where the acting is different than what you maybe had interpreted from the script or how good it is, how much they're selling it. But when you read the script and then you watch the acting, it's like the characters almost seem like they weren't really into the show itself, but it is the pilot. I know that
I don't
it's
know.
like one of
Pilots
those
are hard
goofy kind of
because
like plays or something.
what? Also, all the whole idea is maybe if you know about Brigadoon, maybe it's stronger.
Hmm.
You didn't really have to, but some of the lines were clever. Some of the lyrics were funny.
Yeah,
Some of
yeah.
the I mean, it wasn't like it was a professional script. It just was not my cup of tea. And as I said, I think it was structured poorly. Even though there were a lot of things about it that made me see it as a professional script. The whole topic part of it was just the beginning was way too long when
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to get
Other
to
than
what
that
the story
story
was
element
about.
of like the weird long setup, I actually enjoyed the premise. I like the idea of them not being able to cross this bridge until
I
they,
did too. So you just
yeah,
should have gotten right to that. You should have had
yeah,
them. You should have had a couple check into this retreat,
yeah.
talk a little bit about their problems and
Yeah.
with maybe some others. So you got the idea that they were problem
And
couple who had
introduce
once
them
been
as
in love.
characters, how they met, do a flashback if you have to, but all in the
Even
setting of
that,
that thing, so you don't even really get them in their real world,
yes, and then get right on that bridge,
Mhm.
get them lost on the trail and find the bridge. Then
Yeah.
that was kind of a mystery. What's this bridge out in the middle of nowhere in this little town? And
Yeah.
it just would have worked so much better. I don't know why so much time was being. I really the beginning was so slow. That's when I was counting the pages. I was going, how many
Yeah.
pages have we gone without really engaging in a real conflict
Mhm.
that I would care about, or the story conflict? It seemed like there were conflicts between the characters. There was no story conflict. I didn't know where the story was going until I got to the bridge, and suddenly I realized, oh, we're doing Brigadoon and that. And I didn't even think about Schmigadoon, Brigadoon
Mhm.
until we got to the bridge, and I went, oh, that's what it is, a parody of Brigadoon.
Oh, okay,
But
yeah. Yeah.
but still, that's when it started for me, is at the bridge. So gosh, you could even have started the bridge. There's ways to have the whole group, walk by and they get lost, they wander off and find the bridge.
Mhm.
There's so many ways you could have started this just right at the bridge almost.
Yeah.
I don't know why all that the stuff in the hospital was pointless to me.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. That whole setup was a little bit
I mean, it had some
weird.
cute stuff, like the stuff with the candy machine, and he knew where to kick it. She kicked it. It was kind of a cute meet, that
Sure.
it wasn't that was bad. It's just that if you only have, in this case, I think it was about, I think they went close to probably 22 to 25 minutes, whatever they went.
Yeah.
You just don't have time to do all that and then get to your story, because all that doesn't really, that stuff started to just feel like it was meandering. It was just, I couldn't stay with it. And when I got to Brigadoon, or to Schmigadoon, I got more interested. I got interested again because it was kind of kooky, except all the singing to introduce all the characters did the same thing to me. I was going, I get it, I get it. These
Mhm.
are not real characters. It's a musical. Come on,
Mhm.
let's get the story.
Yeah, and yeah, I totally agree actually. I mean, the I actually wasn't enjoying the this I don't know if you call it the staging or what. I didn't enjoy the musical portion of it. I didn't
Mm,
like that portion of it, not because I don't like musicals. I didn't like the music and the setup and delivery of any of those scenes. And like how
mm.
they like when she's also got a wandering eye. Like she's pretending like she's not interested, but she finds the
Oh
bad
yeah,
guy kind
uh-huh.
of interesting or whatever.
Yeah, the
So,
bad guy yeah.
so to me, I don't know, the egg song or whatever. It was just like the whole thing was
The
just
thing
like
is, I didn't
not.
really I have to say this too, I did not care about that couple. I didn't care if they
Yeah,
stayed
yeah, yeah,
together.
yeah.
I had no sense of, oh, is she gonna cheat on him? Oh, is he gonna cheat on her? Oh, I hope they can stay together. I couldn't care less. I'm sorry, I couldn't. I didn't care about the characters. I didn't care about the story. I didn't care about anything, except I thought maybe the dancing and music would save it. But as I said, I didn't see it, so I don't know. Maybe it would save it for me. I like musicals more than I think Airto does, so maybe I would like it. But Airto didn't, and I pretty much usually agree with Airto on things like that. So I'm guessing I'm not going to watch it. I can tell you that much.
You know that guy
Sorry,
Michael Key, the guy who's the actor, the guy in the couple.
the main character.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
from Key and Peele. I think his name is
Mm-hmm.
Michael Key. I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
I should know this stuff before I start talking about these different shows or whatever. But anyway, he's in a show called Friends from College. Super good show. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
musical, but the speed in which they establish the characters and then move the story forward is
Mm-hmm.
what's lacking about this.
Yes.
They move
This,
this. You find out about the characters. I don't really, but like you said, like it's not that the scenes were bad. They are cool. They are kind of fun, but they're not
mm-hmm.
like meaty enough. There was a tone thing really that made me not care so much about
Mm-hmm.
what's going on with them and like how the story's progressing. And in the script, they have the guy's dog die, which is more of a visual than anything. And then so there's probably a little bit more like emotional bonding going on there that maybe draws you in a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it seems strained.
But all that still was all before, and it didn't really matter because by the time they got to Brigadoon or to Schmigadoon, um, they didn't seem like a couple that really belonged together, and there was
mm,
nothing really to save.
yeah.
So who cared what happened to them in Schmigadoon? And I'm
Yeah, it
saying
was a
you
very
probably
empty
have
kind of
to.
conflict. You know what I mean? Like they're
Yeah,
there. He doesn't want to be there. He's kind of being rude to everybody who's
yeah,
there, which makes him
yeah.
like somewhat not likable. I don't know if that's intentional, but and maybe his character will change throughout the
I'm
season.
guessing that's what they did. I'm guessing he gets more into it. See,
Hmm.
that's what I would do. You start out with a guy who just is a real schmuck about everything,
Yeah.
and hates the musical and hates musicals and hates this whole world.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be fun to see him evolve into somebody who starts find himself reluctantly getting sucked into it and liking it,
Yeah.
or getting
Yeah.
involved in it. So I see the series could work. I just think the pilot was a disaster, and I don't understand how it got on the air, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
it's a big miss for me. I didn't find, even the watching of it, it just didn't, it's, I just was like, I'm not going to watch another episode of
yeah,
this, if I
yeah,
don't need to. Maybe if it was on or something and I saw it, and I'm not trying to be a harsh judge. I didn't enjoy it enough. And it wasn't like
no.
the Ted Lasso thing where I was like, this is a little bit goofy and I'm not sure if I like this character. And I was not really into that one either, actually. So sometimes, the first episode isn't the one for me. I got to get
I
in
know
a
it's
little bit
very
later.
possible that this series will catch on with other things that weren't in the pilot. I'm
Hmm.
just judging from the pilot. That was my attempt at a lesson here for myself and for others, that for
Yeah.
this podcast, was to see what it was like to read the pilot of a show that
Yeah.
got on the air. And I don't understand how it got on the air, frankly. I don't.
Yeah.
Martin Short was in it, right?
Yeah. Martin Short, he played
So
the
was
leprechaun
he
at the
really good
bridge.
as a leprechaun?
Yeah. I mean, he was pretty well, to be honest with you, in the showing of it, they shot it at such a weird angle to make a forced perspective to make him look tiny
Hmm.
that it was really kind of difficult. And it's Martin Short, but it was kind of difficult. It was one central shot pointing down,
Hmm.
never any shot where they were standing,
Hmm.
like, no side shot where you can see the distance from each
Yeah.
other from the bridge or
Uh,
whatever. It was just a very odd angle. That's
I
what I'm
guess
saying. I
that's.
didn't really enjoy the direction of the
I'm
film
gonna say part of that
or
is
the
is,
TV
is
show.
budget. When you're
Yeah.
doing a half-hour show for network these days, there's not a whole lot of budget. It's not like doing something for one of these streaming networks, which sometimes have unlimited budgets
Hmm.
almost. So I could see that they maybe did the best they could with the cameras and the time they had and the money they had. But you're
Hmm.
right; it would have been better. Without seeing it, I know I would have preferred to see some relationship between the characters. It was all the one shot of him to make him look small. In my
Hmm.
mind, I can see that, and I'm going, ugh, that's
Yeah.
like, because that's the only thing you could do. You didn't have the money to do all the others.
Yeah, I mean, at
Make
least
him
do a
really look
side shot so
small.
you can see where he is in relation to them on
Mm,
the bridge and him on the bridge or near the bridge. So
mm,
that, and you could do another. Maybe they didn't have the special effects capabilities or whatever to make him look smaller. So it was like, because you're looking down on him, it's not even easy to see that he's tiny. Like
mm.
it
Wow.
it was more of his face was in the shot, and it just kind of the way the warping of the shot looked, at least to me, it just was that's the thing.
This
They did a
thing.
couple of like unusual, and again, this has nothing to do with the writing. The writing, actually, in terms of writing, I didn't enjoy the storytelling, right? But the writing is good. Like there were, it was a very well written script, except for the structural elements. But in terms of the ideas on the page, they were interesting. But once it got to the even the staging and like the where they position the actors and the color choices, and I just was not
What
into
makes
any of
me
it.
what confuses me about the whole process of getting the show on the air, especially with the networks, is
Hmm.
I personally have had the worst show I ever did got picked up and got on the air, and I went,
Yeah.
I don't understand. I had good things that didn't get on the air, and I had this stuff that does. You know what I have to say, and this probably ban me from all the networks now, is
Hmm.
that the people who make those decisions aren't usually as creative as I'd like them to be. They tend to be more business oriented. So they're trying to think about what will succeed on their network,
Sure. Of course.
and
It's a lot of
what
money.
kind of advertisers they can get and what the audience will be. And I
Hmm.
think they lose perspective about the actual entertainment value, because I do not understand from the pilot why this went to series. And it did. They did the pilot first, from what I
Hmm.
read,
Yeah.
and then got picked up for series. So somebody liked this or figured it'll fit some demographic they needed. I
That's
don't
what
know
I
what
was thinking. That's
I
exactly what
don't
I
know
was
what it
thinking. I
is.
think that
Yeah.
they know that there's a gap in the Glee model, the Glee
Mhm.
field that was super popular. There's a lot of people who are into musical theater, a lot of young people.
Yeah.
So they just probably made a show that they thought would go down that lane. It didn't even seem like when you're watching it that the actors are so enthralled with the opportunity that they're really selling. It's what it is too, is it's that genre but mixed with today's level of snarkiness, which is kind of like a weird
Mm.
blend, emotionally. And then and I guess that's part of the show, they're going to tie that in, but it just makes it, I don't know, it just was
But here's my guess for
hard
the
to watch.
series.
Yeah.
I'm guessing the series doesn't make it past the 8 episodes that were picked because I think what's going to happen, whoever made the choice to turn it into a series, I think didn't know what they were doing
Right.
or got caught up too much in the other factors,
Mm-hmm.
made this choice. And I think after 8 of them, they're going to see that the ratings are going to be so bad
Mm-hmm.
that it's going to get canceled. That's my guess. But again, I only saw the pilot, and I apologize to anybody I've offended if in fact I missed the point of what is working in episodes 2 through 8. Maybe those are wonderful, and you needed this first one. You need to establish so much that you did it this way, though I can't see any reason for that. I think this was a misfire, this
Yeah.
pilot. But I think maybe somebody saw potential for the series and maybe they actualized the potential. I don't know until I see the series, which I will not watch.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they'll keep it, for that crowd, that specific crowd. And obviously the people that they have involved are high level Broadway actor type people, you know what I mean? Like those people, I've recognized some of them from productions or whatever. So,
Mhm.
um, they have a high caliber of actor in the parts, not just the
You
two main
did.
characters who are wrapped up with SNL and Lauren Michaels. It was a Lauren Michaels production, so it has a
Oh,
good
I
push
didn't know
behind it.
that. Oh,
Yeah,
that's why I got on. That's why I got on.
yeah, it
Now I
has a big
know. I
push.
didn't know that.
Yeah,
Who else was involved in it?
so
That
that
was
must
a
be
heavyweight.
NBC then, right? That it's on.
I don't think so. I thought it was
Was it
CBS.
CBS? I gotta check
Whatever,
that.
Lauren
Yeah.
Michaels, that explains it. They
Hmm.
wanted to be in business with Lauren Michaels. That's it. And Lauren
Yeah.
Michaels tells you something's funny and it works. And people see Saturday Night Live, about half of it works and half of it doesn't.
Yeah.
But the half that works is enough to keep the thing on the air.
Hmm.
Um, maybe you just saw Lauren will pull this, will straighten it out and get it going and make it fly right because that's now I understand. They wanted to be in
Hmm.
business with Lauren Michaels.
Yeah.
That's so much in the business. For those of you who haven't been in the business, you'll find you can write the world's greatest script, but the things that seem to matter more are other things, which kills me. It should always be the script, the quality of the script, but they've got Lauren Michaels, or they've got some major stars interested, or they've got some sponsors interested in it. And it's all these things that have nothing to do with how good is the script.
Hmm.
And I'm talking to you as a writer, 2 writers, and I'm telling you, the script is it. The script
Hmm.
is it. And if you don't have good actors, a good script won't work. I mean, I don't mean that it's the script writers are all that count. It's a team. Everybody counts. Everybody's important. A good script with a bad cast is dead.
Yeah.
A great script with a bad cast is dead. But a great script with a great cast is going to be a hit.
Yeah.
And I couldn't see the cast because I only read the script, but the script was not very good. And I'm surprised Lauren Michaels approved this script. But it reminds me of some of the sketches they do on Saturday Night Live that are so bad,
Hmm.
on SNL that are so bad that, and he approves those, I guess. So I guess Lauren just is kind of on and off sometimes with those. He's doing so many things, maybe that's why. But
And you just
um,
take a risk, you're like, hey, I like this. It seems like it'll be fun. Maybe we can develop this into something more as the show goes on, and then I know it seems like a gamble, but I mean, if you like something, you like the people involved, and that's the thing everybody came up with and agreed on, then they just kind of go with it, right?
I know it might be this exactly. Lauren Michaels may
Yeah.
have said, "Look, I got these wonderful Broadway performers. I've got really quality writers. I've
Yeah.
got a wonderful, funny premise. The parody,
Hmm.
and we'll work it out." Maybe that's what he's thinking. Maybe that was the whole thing. Maybe because Lauren Michaels, I mean, who's going to argue with his success? He's a very successful entertainer or provider of entertainment, and So maybe he sees something that I don't see in the long run, but I'm telling you, in the short run, this pilot is just not good enough. It's not good
Yeah.
enough. You don't want to aspire to doing this kind of pilot unless you have Lorne Michaels maybe as your executive
Is
producer.
backing you. Yeah, I wonder if it was just a call where they said, "Oh, we want to do something like Schmigadoon." That was a cool premise. We should do something
It
like
might have
that.
been somebody said, Lorne Michaels might have said, "Look, we got this funny idea. We're going to call it like we're going to take Brigadoon and make it Schmigadoon. And it's all going to be tongue in cheek." That
Hmm.
sounds kind of interesting. I can see that maybe that's Lorne Michaels. He likes it. It's funny. It's going to be maybe one of the Saturday Night Live things that goes through the roof. Because
Hmm.
sometimes SNL goes through the roof. It does. Sometimes it's great, and sometimes it's not so. So they took a gamble with Lorne Michaels in this. As I'm saying, they may save it down the line, but the pilot itself is not something I would tell anybody to write. It's not good
Yeah,
enough.
or in my case, watch. I wouldn't.
Or
It's not a
watch or
show I
buy or
would,
watch or
public. I wouldn't promote it. I wasn't into it. But that's just me. Like, and I think like, you know, in terms of the tone, like they did take it. It was done as if like they were sincere in their roles. You know what I mean? The
mm,
comedy of it had that, that play type comedy. I don't know how to describe it.
yeah,
It's a
like
very,
musical comedy.
yeah,
Musical comedy is different than
certainly.
joke
Like the way they
joke
ramp
funny.
everything up, and it's
Oh
like,
yeah,
like I
yeah,
just it's weird because it's a
yeah.
blend of our style now, which is so much more subdued. We don't have that. Everybody's kind of like a droid now in terms of their delivery compared to those musical
Those
comedies. But
musicals, yeah, are always very big, very.
yeah,
I mean, the gestures and the voices and everything is very big.
exactly.
So if you went into it with the right attitude, maybe you enjoy. I don't think you enjoy the pilot with it. What any attitude you go into
Yeah.
with, but maybe the series, maybe as you're somebody who loves musical comedies and you think it'd be fun to make fun of Brigadoon. Maybe in episodes 2, 3, 4, through 8, you're gonna fall in love with this series. Like Airto says, he didn't like the pilot of Ted Lasso, but he really enjoys the series. So
Yeah, super good. Looking forward to the
let's
next
hope
season.
for their sake that they straighten out what they start out
Yeah.
with a weak pilot. They start out with a weak pilot. Bottom line.
Yeah. Did you so we I don't know how many times I should just keep saying that it wasn't that strong, but what about Ghost? Did you watch Ghost or did you read
I
Ghost?
read Ghost. I thought we were reading this week. I didn't know we were watching. I didn't watch
Yeah.
either one of them. I just read them. I wanted to give people my reaction to the script. Was what you do when you're trying to break into the business. You write a script, you send it to people, and it's their
Right.
reaction to your script decides whether you go or not, or unless you have Lorne Michaels
Yeah.
behind you.
Where'd you
Um,
find the script? Was it on the TV writers? Was it on that
yeah, I
one?
thought when you mentioned it, I thought it was because you were. I thought you said we were going to read it this week, so I
I
thought you
did.
had
Yeah, yeah.
found it.
I thought I saw it, but when I went to look for it, I didn't find it.
Oh, I thought
What
you
season
found
was it
it
in?
on I don't remember which one it was. I found it easily though. It came
Yeah,
right
yeah.
up. So usually if you put what you want to see and you write script after it, like you write ghost script
Mhm. Yeah.
and your search engine search for it, it'll send you to the right site. That's what I did. I got it easily. I got both of them.
Yeah.
Um
Because I
I
wanted to
didn't even
read
know
that one
they
too,
made the
yeah.
air. I actually had to check after I read it. I went, well, this couldn't have made the air. So with the first one. So then I read about it.
Yeah.
And, wow, it got picked up after the pilot for 8 more episodes.
Yeah.
I mean, for 7 more episodes, 8 episodes for the season. Holy whatever. Wow.
Yeah.
How'd that happen?
I didn't even love the premise on this one. I was just like,
Oh,
what?
Ghosts?
Yeah, just,
Oh,
like you mentioned the last one being derivative. I mean, this idea is, for sure I just wasn't into it. I also was not into the characters. I didn't like the characters. I don't like the characters.
and you
I
saw
like the
this one
main
as well,
couple
right?
actually, but I didn't like the rest of the.
Oh,
Huh? What do you say?
and you saw this one or you read it?
Yeah, no, I watched it.
Oh,
Yeah.
you watched it? Oh
Yeah.
gosh, I read it and didn't like it, but I was hoping it played out better.
Yeah. What was the read like? Was it pretty
Well, here's
entertaining
the
or?
read to me. No, the
Yeah.
read was not entertaining. I agree with you. I liked the couple. I did like the
Yeah,
lead
okay.
couple.
Yeah.
Um, I felt that the idea of the haunting and who these characters were, to me, felt derivative and familiar.
Yeah, yeah.
Not necessarily on TV, but in movies and
Yeah, just
in
that
other
premise or
forms.
whatever.
The whole idea of ghosts haunting a place that people come to occupy.
Mhm.
Um, and the same thing, the feeling you had, I didn't feel like any of the ghosts stood out as really interesting to me. I know
Mhm.
there was the one who died of dysentery, and when you walk through him, he smelled really bad.
Yeah.
To me, it's just a big fart joke, and I'm not a
Yeah,
big
yeah.
fan of fart jokes. So, one of the things that actually made me chuckle or made me laugh
Hmm.
that I thought was funny was when people walked through the ghosts, and the ghosts reacted like they had been
Mhm.
tasered.
Yeah.
That was funny to me because each of the ghosts went through. They
Usually it's the other way
sorted out
around.
what the exact, that they
Yeah.
could, and I could picture the ghosts all going through this excruciating pain because
Yeah.
everybody walked through them, but done as a comedy, so it didn't really feel painful. It just felt like, you know,
Yeah.
it was a big physical comic moment. I thought those worked. I didn't think anything else worked.
Here's the thing about the ghosts, they walk through the door, they walk through the walls, but they're standing next to the bed and they're like, "Oh, let's go meander downstairs." And so they all walk around the bed. I was like,
Mm,
what was it? Maybe because the character had just died or whatever. They don't want to walk through the body, but that
yeah.
character had already gone up. I didn't like the writing for the characters. For example, the Viking guy or whatever. I don't know, like what the
Mm,
Nordic bear trapper guy or whatever.
yeah. No,
He's like saying, "Oh, here comes they're still in the present, right? So who cares if he died like 75,000 years ago and he had the mentality then? If he can speak with them, he's going to get caught up to speed through conversation. They have
that's what
nothing
I
but
feel too.
time.
I had problem believing that they didn't know what a television
A
was. He didn't
television, a
know because
movie,
he had never
it's a
heard of a movie. I mean, yes,
yeah,
these people have been living with each other for, you know, hundreds
presumably
of
hundreds
years.
of years. Yeah, they would have caught up. And people are coming into I know it's the one lady, so maybe that gives them the out as the person they were living there with didn't associate with any of that stuff. But still, new people are dying and coming in. So they're gonna have
Yeah.
more updated conversations. Him trying to say like, there's the land boat or whatever, a
Yeah.
land ship. And I was just like, I'm not going to sit through this. He should
Yeah.
have been super genteel. He should have been like the most well educated, even though he still has the same garb. He's spent all this time refining himself. And
Oh,
then,
yeah, that's a
and then
funny
he
idea.
reverts back to that attitude when he gets upset. And that's what affects the electricity in the house, not
Mhm.
him just pointing at it. The whole harassing the people didn't work to me. It
Mm.
was just like I didn't like the walk through the I just was not into the
Again, it's the same
that.
thing. Like, what was the central conflict of for the pilot? It wasn't. It didn't feel like a real conflict because there was nothing I really cared about. There was what was at stake. Would these people stay or wouldn't they stay? It didn't feel like there was any real surprise because you knew they were going to stay because it's a series.
Hmm.
Um,
And who are you supposed to be concerned with? Is it the ghost or the couple? Because
I don't know.
the ghosts say they don't want anybody there, but they don't really explain what it is that keeps them from wanting anyone there. What else are they going to do in an
I know for
empty
some reason
house?
they want all these people around because they thought they'd be noisy and a nuisance. But
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they
gosh,
did
if you've
say
been
that
alone
actually,
for all
but
that time,
it
maybe you'd
wasn't well
want
enough
somebody around. I
designed.
didn't get any part of it. And the only thing I liked about it was I liked the couple's relationship. I
Yeah.
liked it once she almost. I'm giving things away, but
Yeah, well,
nobody
yeah,
should watch this anyhow.
doesn't matter. Yeah.
I I thought that once she almost died and he did the things she wanted, that was sweet and that was fun, but it wasn't funny.
No,
It
and the setup
wasn't.
was like I saw that coming from like a long
Mhm,
mile away, but then the execution of it, the actually visualizing it and being a part of the experience was not satisfying. I mean, it was a giant vase. She would have walked into that thing, she couldn't have walked into that thing unless she planned on it. It's so huge. You just see that there's this giant thing on the floor if you have any sense of moving about the world at all,
mhm.
like it just doesn't.
Oh, yeah.
I don't
Well, I
know.
didn't see that because I read it, but I just wrote, I'm looking at my notes. I keep glancing over my notes. I'm
Yeah.
keeping looking for something I liked, and I don't have one good note except that I liked the couple. I thought I saw potential in the couple. I didn't think the
Yeah.
couple played out well, but I think I saw potential in that couple. There was something about the couple that was charming in a way, but the whole idea of this house and these ghosts just doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah. And then yeah, what was the so that was a
And then she could see the ghost at the end. Wait, I'm
right.
sorry, I didn't mean to
Yeah, no,
interrupt
no,
you.
that's
Go ahead.
fine. Yeah, no, exactly. She could see the ghost because she fell down the stairs, almost died. So then now she's a hybrid where she can actually see the ghost, and they're surprised that she can hear her,
Yeah,
or
so I guess they're going to
they can
start
be heard.
interacting with the ghosts again. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
the pilot should have started later
Mm-hmm.
in their storyline so that we
Kind
got
of
that
done a
she could talk
flashback
to
so we
them,
could, yeah.
because her talking to them is going to change everything. But you can't do a pilot that's boring and then think, well, because it's going to be boring now because what's fun about it is how people develop. And you can't do it. Your pilot still has to capture people. It still has to have some. And once we found that she could hear and see the ghost, that changes everything. She's
Yeah,
going to have
it's a shift
relationships with
change.
these. She now will have relationships with these ghosts, and he
Yeah.
won't. And maybe he'll think she's crazy. Maybe he won't. Who knows? There's a lot of potential for the series again. Like the other one. I see potential for the series, but none of it's in the pilot.
Yeah,
And the
that's the
pilot
thing.
is
What do you think
boring.
about that? I mean, isn't that crazy? Like they set up an entire premise that doesn't happen in the first episode. So the fact that she can see them and they're not interacting, now we got to wait for a whole new episode for them to start developing these, like, if like she can see them, then she can see them. They can explain to her what's going on, and then whether they decide to have relationships with these people or not is gonna, I don't know. Like you
I don't know
said,
what the series is going to be. From the
yeah.
pilot, I have no idea. And I'm telling you, these are two pilots that should have gone into the files,
Hmm.
not on the air, given the pilots. But
They're
I'm
like
guessing
remakes. Both are
maybe
remakes. Yeah.
did Lorne Michaels do this one too?
No, I don't
was
know,
it
but it
was
just
it was
reminds
there
me of
somebody?
Beetlejuice, like that cliche, like where you have ghosts that haunt the house, and then, they befriend the people who live there and they communicate with them, and it's really because they haven't
It
transferred over
doesn't
yet
feel
or
it
whatever.
feels like a kind of an outrageous idea, but it's been done before. It's
Yeah.
one thing if you do something that's done before that's kind of an ordinary idea, and so of course it's been done before, it's kind of ordinary, but you're taking something really outrageous,
Hmm.
but it's already been done too many times. So it just you lose the sense of it being different or outrageous or whatever. It's just a bunch of shtick to me, and uh, I didn't like it at all. I wouldn't watch this. I wouldn't watch Ghosts, and I wouldn't watch Schmigadoon. So my report for the day is read books.
And then the idea that they just rehashed an old kind of tale so that they could spruce it up with being a diverse cast was
Mm,
kind of, it does not matter. It's not entertainment just because you're sticking people from different walks of life all together. That doesn't mean that they're interesting, and you
right.
figure out reasons for them to be together. It's just, I don't know, it just doesn't make the show fun to watch. Like the show
Yeah.
needs to still be fun to watch. You have to care about the characters. There's
And you know what?
too
One of the
many
things you
characters right off
said,
the bat too.
yeah, because of all these ghosts. And then that one thing where there are all these ghosts in the basement that died from smallpox.
Yeah, we don't even know
Oh,
what's going on with them.
that's just ugly and awful. I mean, you go to the basement and they turn on the light, and there's all these people who've been stuck in the basement, never leave the basement, it appears,
They were
who are all
actually
stuck
funny.
together because they're isolated. What?
They were actually funny. That was like
Their
actually a
lines were
funnier
funny,
part.
but
Yeah.
it was just like it was so gruesome. And then they go back upstairs, and I'm going, well, what's going to come of these people? Maybe there's something about they relate to them too and free them up. There's just
Hmm.
so many things that could happen that so
Sure.
there's a lot of potential in the pilot, but the pilot itself just is boring. So nobody would watch episode 2. And I'm guessing again, somebody with clout is behind this one because it does not make sense that this one got picked up either, except for there must be somebody. There must be
Yeah.
somebody or some reason. There must be somebody had a commitment or
They both dealt with large casts too. Both these shows had, this
yeah,
one
very large
actually
cast. Yeah.
had a little bit better way of, and that's a good thing to think about, right? Like if you were talking about craft, how do you establish a large cast of different types of people quickly for a show. Cheers does that, for example, where they establish a lot of people at one time.
Mhm.
Both of these shows, Schmigadoon, you could see if in terms of the way we were looking at it, didn't quite work for us. It wasn't
Mhm.
something to where I was like, yeah, the way they're introducing all these different characters really appeals to me. Whereas the Ghost show, the way they introduced these different characters was interesting because they're all kind of around a bed together. But yeah, again, it wasn't really interesting. I wasn't really riveted by their introductions and how they're involved in the story. It's kind of just one of those shows where the people are either standing or sitting in some place, one room or another. It just kind of had that
Yeah.
that
And one
vibe.
thing you said that really struck me would be great potential if in fact there was some sense that they've homogenized in a way, because these people have
Hmm.
all these ghosts from all these different times have all lived together for hundreds of years, so
Right.
they would have influenced each other. So maybe the Viking guy talking a little hip hop might have been
Hmm.
funny
Hmm.
if in fact, because there's just no way I can buy the reality that they've all stayed exactly the way they were when they died
It's like,
and had
what's the it's
didn't
so
evolve at
stupid.
all with their
Yeah.
influence from the other people.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense. I mean, yet somebody who developed old habits, like the Viking, maybe doesn't want to be like the current guy, and maybe doesn't like hip hop
Yeah.
but he would have heard of it. He would have known it existed. Those parts, those kind of
Hmm.
jarring things that didn't feel real. And I know ghosts, it's a story about ghosts, so how real is it? But the
Yeah.
thing is, when you do these fantasies, it's got to feel real in that fantasy world, or you can't care about anything.
Hmm.
And I think it doesn't feel real in that fantasy world because of things like that.
Hmm.
Um, there should have been some influence from each other. Maybe there will later on, but again, you can't write bad pilots. You out there who want to break into the business, or those of you already in the business, that that the pilot has to be outstanding to get interest.
Yeah.
Both of these are very dull, banal pilots. One had Lorne Michaels. That explains why that one went.
Yeah.
What is the explanation of this one? I don't know.
Hmm.
I don't know. I should have read who the people were. I didn't read about it. Did you read about it at all?
No, I try to go in blind usually. I just want to read the script and see the story because I don't want if I get too immersed with like, I like, yeah, I can think like, oh, well, why did this happen or this happen? But I want to, because we talk more about story elements, which is definitely like, one of my main interests in terms of like, crafting stories is really the cool part, right? So like this going into this one, I didn't have any expectations or anything. And not like I don't like to know all that business stuff. That's after. But yeah, usually going in, I try to like not see who played the parts. We knew ahead of
Mm,
time with Only Murders in the Building, that's part of the draw. So it's a little
mm,
bit different. But um, watching like
yeah.
shows like Atlanta or the Big Bang Theory, I'm familiar with some of those actors, but I didn't know all of them. I just kind of try
Mm.
to go in not knowing anything about it.
For me, what's frustrating, I think, again, I keep talking to those of you who haven't gotten in the business yet, but some of you listening have been in the business. So those who have know what I'm talking about, is that it's very frustrating to be a writer on the outside. I know you've written some really good character and story uh, elements. And then what the network goes for is a broad, big uh, kind of idea. It has a big hook on it.
Yeah.
And that's more important to them than the execution. And you can't know. The series won't last without execution. Do
Hmm.
not buy it because it has a big hook.
Yeah.
Buy it because the characters are well executed, that the drama in the comedy is well developed, that the
Hmm.
story has real conflicts that are important. Buy it for that. But these people who are buying it, many of them are very, very young. They're coming right out of film school, or whether say television or whatever, or from business schools, and they're only thinking about the business part of it. They're only thinking about the hooks and the angles and who's connected. And it just, God, it's so frustrating.
Hmm.
Wanting to teach people to be good writers, and then at the end of my class, I always have to say, but you need an element of luck, because most people who will read your scripts won't know whether they're good or bad. I had an agent used to tell me, I don't know a good script from a bad script. I just kind of go by how people react. I go, I don't want you for an agent anymore. I mean, that's what you're up against. You've got agents, you've got development people who
Right.
don't know a good script from a bad script, and all they're looking at is the hook and the gimmicks.
Mm-hmm.
And you go, yes, maybe that will sell the first viewing, so people come in. But the
Mm-hmm.
first viewing is a bad pilot, then they're done with it. So
Yeah.
that's why television is failing and will continue to fail. And I think eventually will disappear. I think it'll all be streaming and HBO, Showtime, Hulu. All those
Mm-hmm.
people are Netflix in particular, who owns Hollywood now. I think until you start thinking about the content, not the hooks, not the gimmicks, you're killing your business. And I think show business, I think the TV business is on its way to death.
Yeah, I mean, I just
Work on,
watched The Queen's Gambit, and that's
and
a
it was
show.
very good.
Oh, it's
But
fantastic.
who did that?
I don't know. I have to look into it.
I bet it wasn't the network.
No, it was Netflix. That's because you said something about
That's
the
what I'm
Netflix
saying.
and
See, there
streaming, and I was
I'm
like, yeah,
saying
that's why I brought it
they
up.
wouldn't buy that, the networks, because it's about somebody whose life is involved in chess and is a genius who's got other problems. That's all character stuff. They don't buy
Hmm.
character stuff. They would buy if she were a witch who
Yeah.
could who could turn the characters
Totally.
into real people who then
Yeah.
plays themselves around and move each other around. They go,
Yeah.
yes, that's it.
There you go. Yeah. Or if it's a medical drama or something. Yeah, that's actually a great point because
It
you're packing a
frustrates
lot of
me.
story and like like as a person, like I said, who likes the craft of it, you're packing a lot of great storytelling in these shows. Some of these shows that they have, the Queen's Gambit was like, wow, this is fantastic visuals, great interest, like rooting character
Real strong
motivation.
characters,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. Oh,
When the
yeah, for sure.
characters are strong, and
Hmm.
it's more important to me than the conflict. Even when the
Yeah.
characters are strong, it just pulls me in. I start
Hmm.
believing. I suspend my disbelief, and I believe them, and I care about them. You didn't care or believe one character in either one of these pilots.
Yeah.
Not a moment. Not a moment of it
Yeah.
caring.
And then what's that guy, Alan Cummings? He's always in Broadway and stuff like that. Really popular. He
What
was
about him?
he played the Mayor Minlove or something like that
Mm-hmm.
in Schmigadoon.
Mm-hmm.
His delivery was great, fantastic. There's another woman that I can't remember her name. She's always in Broadway stuff. So they had
Well, you
the
know what?
conviction
Well,
to like bring out the character and make it very interesting and compelling,
mhm.
but it was only short-lived. There's like those little blips, and maybe they'll flesh these characters out as the show goes on. But like you said, if you don't really like the pilot, who's going to return? I mean, I have
Right.
no intention of watching it again just for those characters.
Yeah.
They could
You
have
know what
done
you're
a better
saying?
job, I think, if they would have had less characters to focus on in the pilot,
Mm.
you know?
But you're describing some good acting, and that's the
Hmm.
other thing I wanted to say, where I say we are all dependent on each other. If you write a great script and you have bad actors, it's going to fail. If
Right.
you have great actors and bad scripts, it's going to fail. So
Hmm.
these people who pulled out moments in that pilot were working their asses off trying to
Hmm.
save something, but they had no material to work with.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's why it was so short lived. And I people, we've got to start hiring really good writers, really good actors, and screw the gimmicks and the hooks.
Hmm.
Screw it, man. That's just ruining television.
Yeah, it's like, but do you think it's because it's like that family-friendly television? Like, why is it that they're not going to tell a Netflix level story with characters? Why do they have? Why does it have to have this thin? They'll do shows for like medical shows or these FBI shows or CIA
Yeah.
shows or whatever. They'll develop those types of characters, like the Blacklist or something like that. Like,
Right, they have more. You're right. Those are true. Those tend to have more development in them. But I worked on Cheers and Taxi, and I believe both those shows, we were very, very concerned about our character development more than
hmm.
anything. And so I think there are writers out there who can do that, but writers are being taught now to just be loose and flimsy and throwing gimmicks. And that's kind of like if you're working for the network and in
Well, I have a
comedy,
question
in
for you.
comedy.
Because when Schmigadoon, that was the whole point of all this delayed maturity throughout the script, is to try to give us the idea of, character development, right? But what is it about what they constructed, even though it's a lot of pages, that
Mhm.
wasn't something that made you feel more connected to the characters as people?
I didn't feel any of their conversations ever felt real or sincere, and even when they were arguing over his lack of interest in the relationship that she felt,
Mhm.
there was never a moment the dialogue just wasn't good enough,
Mhm.
unfortunately. And again, these writers are going to hate me. They're gonna go on to be big shots and never let me do anything. But I thought they screwed it up. I thought the relationship should have been very real. The dialogue should have
Mhm.
felt more real. The concern, the relationships just were all artificial and
Mhm.
it's very simple. His wandering eye, her wandering eye, he sees that girl, she sees that girl. It's just all those seem like dramatic moments, but they aren't because they're just stereotypical. They're just the
Mhm.
easy way. They're like cliche scenes.
Mhm.
You wouldn't do cliche language because people say, "Oh, that there's no originality." They're doing cliche scenes we've
Mhm.
seen.
Right.
The guy who's with the girl, but he notices another pretty girl. It's not enough. It's got to be like maybe he even hates that he has a wandering eye. That would
Mhm.
make it more interesting. That he
Right.
shit. I don't want to cheat on her because I really love her. Now
Right.
he really loves her because he sees a pretty girl and he pulls himself away from that.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel ever a moment that was unique, or engaging.
Mhm.
Nothing in either script, nothing.
And when you see, so in Schmigadoon, when they find out they're trapped until they find true love, but they both seem like she's super invested in the relationship apparently, right? And he's kind
Mhm,
of, a little bit at ease with what's happening, or he's not committal. He's not committed, basically. But there's
right.
nothing about their relationship where you read it or think, watching them, that hey, they got a spark here. They have a chemistry that they're kind
Right.
of ignoring due to the lack of their maturity, right?
Yeah, I
So
never felt that. I never
yeah.
felt there was anything there. I never felt there was anything between them except at the very beginning when they came together over some cute thing.
Hmm.
Then it just developed showing they date, she
Hmm.
moves in with him. None of that was engaging either. When the dog died, there was potential there for some really intense feelings between the two of them, and there was nothing. She just
Hmm.
like comforted him, and that was
Right.
the end of that. So I don't think there was any depth. There was no depth. There was nothing beyond surface scratching material, and you can't do that. You just can't do that. And you could tell the same story with more engaging dialogue, more penetrating dialogue, and let the characters play those moments, and you would have had something, but you had
Hmm. Right.
nothing. You just had superficial get from point A to point Z, and yes, it all fits together, and now you're done.
Yeah.
And it didn't even look like they did a second draft or a third or a polish, or it just felt to me like it was just the first idea that came to mind went on the page and probably stayed there. That's how it
Hmm.
felt to me. I just saw
Yeah.
no interesting twists, turns. Everything was just so banal. Everything was just so
And it is very
ordinary.
watered down too. Like that's the other thing. There's no bite to any of it. Even though you're watching
No,
this couple
no.
go through this, like you said, these traumatic moments, it feels like nothing is happening. And I'm interested in the why is that? Because anybody could write a scene like that where you have a scene where you're filling in space and you're like, oh, I need them to have this argument so I can get to this other section real quick.
Yeah.
And that, like you said, maybe that just stayed on the page. It didn't feel like much, but it got you to the next scene so that you could write that. You know how you do that process of coming up with stuff sometimes.
You know what I do, and I've told you this, and you know from my writing how I do this. I'll write something that's as good as I think I can write.
Yeah.
And then I do a second draft and find, gee, I didn't
Hmm.
because now you've gotten a lot of the heavy lifting done. So now you can go
Exactly.
back and you look at it again. Now you see details that you didn't have time to think about before. And now you say, oh, this could make it a little more turn or a little
Hmm.
deeper, or whatever. And then after I do a second draft, I always do a polish, and I do probably another polish of the polish before I turn it into the producers who are going to give me notes and cause more rewriting. But
Yeah.
this script felt like there couldn't have been more rewriting because everything was so superficial on both scripts. So I can't believe there was any rewriting. I think somebody wrote the script. They probably had a few simple notes that they adjusted to and went
Hmm.
ahead. And you can't, you have to write and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite. The first time you write something and you think it's just perfect, it isn't. It just isn't. I can tell you from my 30 years in the business, your first draft, no matter how good you are, is not good enough.
Hmm. So I wonder what some of the notes, if there were notes, what the notes on this show would be, and also it just, ah man, it's and again, this is I would be happy and pleased with myself to write something like this and have it produced. You know what I mean? It's not anything about the person doing it or whatever. It's just in terms of my understanding of the story craft and what you would hope to accomplish while you're doing it. I just the interactions between the characters, the different ghosts, really just did not matter to me at all. Like
Mm.
it was like one of those like things where they have like all these like cardboard cutouts and they just stick them in a scene and then like
Mm.
they have a little bit of dialogue and then they move them to the next room or whatever. It just doesn't. I even if you had a few less care. I don't know why we needed 20 of those ghosts. You know what I mean? The girl with the drugs that had the where she got attacked by the bear. I know you didn't see the show, but she had the best
I
delivery of that line.
Oh, did she?
Yeah. So that one was like, okay, that's fun. She's a fun character. But going all the way,
You know what?
I like the idea too of them going all the way back through history and pulling up all these different people who've died in this one particular area. However, it just wasn't.
You know what? I also
I
like that
didn't
they were
care.
from different, that these ghosts from different time periods. But then there
Yeah.
should have been some fun in their interaction in
Hmm.
that they have already evolved somewhat and
Hmm.
still don't agree. The guy still likes his old-fashioned ways over the more modern ways, but he should know about the more modern ways. How could he not know about them
He would be
in a
more of an
house that people
expert.
come and go and the ghosts are newer and
Yeah, the newer
I
ghosts would have less cultural understanding, cultural relevance, because you have nothing to do. You're just walking around for eternity throughout this entire this era, and then another era, then another era. Like you would be like, how when they say like vampires are like really well educated and they know all the best wines. That makes sense. It's like, yeah, because they've been in this world forever. Like, what
mm.
else? You pick up on things even if you're not trying. You know what I mean?
You would
Yeah.
pick up on it. I think that's what I'm saying. They missed it. So you write
Hmm.
this thing and you look back and say, what you said, these characters all look like they're cardboard cutouts. What's missing? Let's give them some depth. Let's make these two characters hate each other. Let's
Yeah.
make these two characters love each other. Maybe they even flirt with each other. I think there was a little bit of that, but nothing that really that I can even remember. So it wasn't very engaging. But yeah, fewer ghosts might have helped because you could concentrate, do more dialogue, more time with the ghosts that you show.
Yeah. The guy with the arrow through his neck, he had a pretty fun scene where he was saying like, it was a funny, it was a good scene and it was a good premise, like short premise joke setup, right? Like
Mm,
where he's talking about how, it was after they were hinting that maybe his wife would die or something like that. So, and he's talking about how right before he died, he was in an argument with his wife and he can't remember what the
mm,
argument was about, but
right.
and life is precious and everything, and then he remembers what it was about and gets super embedded in like, and that's because she was always
Actually,
like
that
that.
was not
that was
bad. That
that was
was
good.
not bad. That was a
Yeah.
pretty good moment. You're
Yeah,
right. Um,
I like that. I enjoyed
yeah, because
the
that seemed.
development of that portion of that guy's
Mhm.
character, but I didn't actually care too much about that particular character, but that part was interesting.
Yeah, well, there were some interesting things.
Yeah.
The people who wrote both these scripts obviously are professional writers.
Sure. Yeah,
That's
very
how
good
they got to this
craftspeople. Yeah.
point.
Hmm.
Um, but I think they either didn't study it or don't believe in it. The courses I taught and the courses I took, or well, actually, when I was in school, they didn't have the courses. I took literature courses, not TV writing, but the idea of building stories is the same.
Right.
And they didn't do any building. They didn't do any depth. They didn't do any searching. And
Hmm.
so I think somehow they have raw talent. And I think they missed the courses that teach you about structure and about character development. I think they either missed them or didn't care about it because they don't see. They're looking at all the comedies on the networks, and then none of them have it either. So they're saying comedy's just a bunch of trivial, uh, superficial stuff that should have laughs in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't even have to have that many laughs anymore. It used to be we had to have more laughs in our shows. And so they're looking at the comedies on the half hour and saying, well, it's just crap. We can write crap. It's easy, though I'm sure they don't call it crap. Um, it isn't easy. If it's easy, then you're not doing it right.
You can see why these dramedies are getting so much play now, right? Because they're humorous, but they have so much. People are hungry for a depth of character.
That's why the dramedies are working better than
Yeah,
the comedies. The
right.
dramedies are still saying, oh, I got to have some dramatic
Yeah,
interest. But
you
the
need some
comedy
character
people are
development.
still thinking it's just comedy. Now, if you do something like Animal House, where it's
Hmm.
just laugh out loud, joke, joke, big scenes, big physical, then you can do. Then people look at that and say, "Oh, there's no substance here." Yeah, but it was just a laugh fest. It's okay.
Hmm.
But people are writing these shows that don't have that many laughs in them, that are not laugh fests, and they still don't have any story or any depth or any strength of structure.
I
And
couldn't find the shows funny. That's the other thing. Schmigadoon was
mm,
funnier because I already know it's a musical comedy. It's not that like I don't know Ghost is a comedy clearly, but their lines that they're saying don't make me laugh. They're like, what?
uh,
This is. I like you talked about the premise with the guy where they walk through them. That part I guess is cool. I didn't really find it funny, but I didn't love their their involvement with the world. Like that
mm.
also did not, the one guy does the electricity, the other guy can push a cup off the thing. The way
Yeah,
they
that was boring.
developed
That
it
stuff about that.
wasn't
It took a
interesting.
long time for him to push the cup off the edge. It took a long time
Yeah.
for the electrical stuff, and yet it wasn't even funny or dramatic.
When the pacing ruined the draw, and it wasn't something that needed to even be done because you
I know.
again, they would have
I'm
had
telling you,
years and
these.
years to develop these skills. They should be pros at this. Why are they new to like they've never haunted anyone before? They just like the old ladies, so they're out of practice, I guess. The idea
Uh,
that they're even it's a new idea to them, like, oh, we've never haunted before, but they're
mm,
all in agreement that they don't want anybody else around. It doesn't make any sense.
I know.
What
I'm
are you,
telling you,
empty house? Because
this
the
is
house will get
like
torn down, then they won't have any place. They'll stand outside. I don't really get
I've had students write
the
scripts for
why.
me better than these that I still ask them to rewrite, and I know that's a real slam to these writers, but and I believe they're probably, these writers have natural talent, which got them this far, got them to come up with these premises, but I don't think they're working hard enough. I'm sorry, they're not working hard enough. And I think it's probably not even their fault. I think they've gotten this whole idea that most people have, that comedies are just silly nonsense.
But there's so many great shows out there right now. Like Ted
I
Lasso's a
know,
great show. Atlanta's a great show.
but
There's a lot of great
those
shows.
have a
So
lot of drama in them. I'm saying the new form is dramatic comedy, or they call them dramedy sometimes. Those work better because people are focusing again on drama. People have always thought drama has depth, has importance. Drama, they've always thought, but they always think of comedies as just being this fluff,
mhm.
and they don't get it. And until you've really studied it and said, yes, the best ones had the superficial things that you loved, but they were just like the coat of paint over a house that's really well built. If the
Mhm.
house isn't really well built, then you still have a crappy house, no matter how much
Yeah,
nice
of
paint
course.
you
No
put
good
on it. So,
foundation. Yeah. And
so people aren't working hard enough. I'm sorry. I taught. I keep saying I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. I feel bad about it though, that I've been teaching comedy writing, television comedy writing for a long time now, and they all do that. The students do it. Everybody does it. They've bought into that idea that half-hour comedy, or any comedy, even movies, is just a romp. So nobody really tries very hard, and those who do try hard end up with really good comedies that people remember. You
mhm.
know, so you got to work harder. I'm sorry, the people who wrote these scripts, who have talent, you got to work harder to make it more substantial. You do. You do. You have
Yeah,
to
no,
work harder.
the quickness of, one thing I guess is good, and so say for Ghost, one thing that they did well is they once you delivered the idea that the original person had died, they jumped right into bringing that couple in and why they have it, and that was actually some of the funnier portion of the scenes, like where they described why, good news, your aunt died, now you have a new house, and she was said, well, doesn't she have a son? And he's like, well, even better news, he's also dead. So it's a
Yeah.
kind of a funny delivery,
Mm.
the chemistry between the couple was interesting in terms of what I saw, but they quickly got you up to speed with, they didn't labor over the point, so that was an
Mm.
effective scene where they're in there, they're getting their their heirs, whatever, the heir apparents getting their whatever you call it, what
And
do you
then
call
and
that
they get
anyway?
there.
What do you call
No.
that? Where you like give somebody something, their inheritance. Gosh.
Oh, their inheritance. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
there's nothing wrong with if you wrote a log line for the story, it probably is fine. And I think this is a fine first draft, and
mhm,
that sounds like an insult. I guess it is, but
mhm,
this both of them reasonably were acceptable first drafts, certainly
yeah.
not final drafts.
Yeah. Yeah. Just and again, I didn't read Big Bang Theories, but if I had read the script, I probably would have said, oh, this is a very thin story. You might need more story here. Oh wait, did I read that? No, actually, I think I did. We did read those, right?
We
We read,
read,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, we read Big Bang Theory. Okay,
Mhm.
so, um,
Those stories are thin, but the jokes are really solid, and there were a lot of
yeah,
jokes.
and they're original
And
jokes. That was a cool
yes,
thing. Like
and that's
the
one of the things
take on the joke was
I
different.
say you can do a romp if it has enough jokes and you're just there for the jokes. And the
Hmm.
romp is just to move you along to the next joke, which is
Hmm.
what Big Bang Theory is.
Hmm.
And they succeed at it because they have a lot of good jokes. These
It
shows
actually
do
gives me
not.
a newfound respect for Big Bang Theory. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
In terms of the joke crafting, like the whole Indian food being a laxative. Like they slipped in some stuff that was an interesting take in the way that they
Mhm.
delivered those lines.
Yes. And
So.
they had solid, good jokes. People
Hmm.
have to write. Again, that people are writing these really soft jokes now. I don't
Hmm.
understand it. And if you can't write really hard jokes, then do a dramedy. Don't try and do an all-out comedy, because
Hmm.
your all-out comedy has to be laugh out loud almost every other minute. Every minute there's got to be laugh out loud. 3 laughs per page. And that's what we used to do in the old days when the shows were just funny and not substantial. Today, you can do a show like Atlanta that's substantial and doesn't have to have as many funny jokes because you care about the story and the characters. But if you're not going to care about your story and your characters, then you got to keep your audience laughing. And these
Hmm.
shows don't do that either.
No, the joke where he said, Tara Reid was a movie star, and she's like, "Well, who's Tara Reid?" And she's like, "A movie star," and the other one's like, "Oh, is it a talkie or?" Just
Mm.
because it's era specific, and then she's like, "It's a play that you project on the screen," and the one guy's like, What do you mean when you say project?" And the other guy's like, "Well, what is a play?" Like I get that that's funny. I understand why that's funny, but in the context of the development of those characters, it just the
It feels
dating of those particular eras for this type of setting of this type of now worldly knowledge is just dumb. It was
I
just
could
not
never get to
dumb.
suspension of
It's dumb.
disbelief. I could never
Yeah.
get to suspension of disbelief in either
Yeah.
one.
Hmm.
And that is primary. You've got to get your people captivated by your
Hmm.
story. You got to get your people have rooting interest.
Yeah.
People are overlooking those things. And
Hmm.
we used to stay on taxi sometimes from we would come to work at about 10 and would stay till 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
We worked our asses off
Yeah.
because we had to do all these things. And I swear, I bet you these other shows are coming in at 10 and going home at 5.
Mm.
And you and turning in first and second drafts, not rewrites and polishes and rewrites of the polish, and
Hmm.
and a and a and a table draft, and then the shooting draft. There's just got to be more writing. You're not
Hmm.
writing enough.
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually a good point. Just in terms of the crafting of it and like how much time it takes to. Yeah, it does kind of give you like a first draft kind of feel. I could see that.
They do. They both feel like first drafts where you read and say, ah, I see what you're going to do here. I see what you're going to do here.
Hmm.
Now do it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they didn't. They shot it
Funny.
instead.
Yeah. Yeah. There was actually, what was it? Another kind of made me. Oh, I saw a show the other day at my brother's house, and it was called Resident Alien. Have you seen that one? It's
Mm,
a sci-fi show, but it's got comedy in it, right?
mhm,
So it it's campy in the way that they have an alien that only this one kid can see, and the aliens come in and taken over the position of this doctor. He killed the doctor, took over his body. Now he's like infiltrating his way through the
mm,
society so he can do whatever. I don't know what the main premise is because I kind of jumped in the middle of whatever season it's on.
yeah.
And but there's a kid that refuses to bow to his parents' demands that he apologize to this alien. The alien and him have an understanding that the kid knows he can see him, and the alien is pretending like the kid's crazy. He's a doctor, actually. He plays a
Mm,
doctor. So
yeah.
his recommendation to the parents is, put him on drugs or whatever because he's got
Mm,
some mental issues. But he's really an alien, but only the kid can see his alien
yeah.
form.
Yeah.
Everyone
Yeah.
else sees the human form. But the
Right.
delivery, the way that they have the tone, the dialogue, it's actually very entertaining. I was like, this is a funny show. This is a really
Yeah.
funny show. Yeah,
Y-
and
You
so
know what the problem also
it's
when you try and
enjoyable when
pitch
something's done well, huh?
when you try and pitch a show, because I've been through this sometimes,
Yeah.
since I'm so character oriented in
Yeah.
the way I learned the business and all I
Yeah.
did. Sometimes you go and you'd pitch the networks, and networks would just get bored because they
Mm.
don't get that hook.
Yeah.
If you throw him the hook in, he's an alien
Hmm.
who takes over a body, and then you know now they're listening. But if you go and you say, I got this guy and his psychiatrist wants to uh, undermine this kid because this kid knows things about the psychiatrist, leave out the alien element, they're
Hmm.
bored, they're
Hmm.
gone, they're not there, they're not listening to you. And yet that would be more interesting than if you did an alien thing where the alien didn't relate to him, which is what these shows tend to do. There's no relationships
Hmm.
that matter because they sold it with their hooks and gimmicks.
Hmm.
And so you go and you pitch some of this great character stuff. 9 times out of 10, I found the network just when it's all over, they just walk away. They don't know how to pitch it to their superiors. How am
Yeah.
I going to pitch this to so and so? I know how to pitch the idea that a bunch of ghosts are haunting a house where this couple moves in. I understand that pitch. I can go in and pitch that next. The one where they have psychological differences or problems and work them out through these ghosts. I don't know how to pitch that to my boss, so I'm
Yeah.
just going to go with the one where it's simpler.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I
really,
mean,
the
that
whole
show was
problem with the
on the
whole
Sci-Fi
development,
Channel. Yeah.
I think there's a development problem with the networks that's going to kill them.
Yeah. It's funny you bring up the psychologist though, because I actually thought for the ghost show, it would have been funnier if one of the dead characters was a psychologist. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
then they could analyze each other. And if it was more about like what they were like as people and why they're in this place, stuck in purgatory, and
Yeah.
then, kind of analyze the relationship as it goes along, that could be, I don't know why I thought that
See,
would
that
be a
was
more
an
interesting
unknown
character.
that made me curious. That if I had liked the show at all, I'd be
Hmm.
sticking in to see, well, why aren't they able to get to go on to heaven or
Yeah.
hell? Why are they
Yeah. Yeah.
stuck there? Uh, they did present that as a dilemma, and it's one that made me curious, but
Sure.
not enough to watch the show.
No, but if like say like they had done something like that where they were because the character that transitioned so quickly, we don't know why she was able to transition and everyone else is stuck, like you said. So if that had been more of why they're tied to the house, or
Mm,
what's the reason, if there's something about that, them not transitioning
mm.
is to also why they don't want to have more people involved with the house.
Might be an interesting point to talk. If in fact they knew why she went on and they
Yeah.
can't, that
Yeah.
would be also interesting. But
Yeah.
there's so many things they could have done. They should have had these kinds of discussions. I don't
Hmm.
think they did.
Yeah. And then you start getting into like these all kind of, there's more of an idea of like you're stretching because you can play with spirituality, you can play with all the different eras of what your understanding of God is, because you have the guy who's the Viking or whatever, so the explorer, the early explorer, so his idea is going to be different than the last guy who just worked at Lehman
Yeah.
Brothers and like
Yeah.
somehow ended up there after a binge night of partying in the Hamptons or whatever.
Yeah. There wasn't much about the ghosts, and there wasn't much about the couple.
Hmm.
There was some idea that they want to make the house work as a hotel, and the
Yeah,
ghosts don't want that to happen. That's their
yeah.
central conflict. But it just is went
And his
nowhere
wasn't
and was
developed well
not.
enough, right? Because he's a chef. So when she said bed and breakfast, that should have sent up like, oh, this could be cool. And that's what we don't know anything about their life so far in New York other than she doesn't want to be there. And he's a chef and she's a freelance writer. So we don't really understand like what they're leaving behind, why it's a struggle for him to want to leave. If because it's so
Yeah,
underdeveloped in terms of their character, we couldn't
I
even
know.
root for him wanting to stay in New York. And so giving up something for him to give up being in New York just so he can be with her no matter where they are because he loves her so much because he almost lost her, then you're like tied into the emotional development of the character and what could possibly pull him back at certain times and why he wouldn't want to devote his time to being in a bed and breakfast. What kind of, if he's a Michelin star chef and
Yeah,
you've
want to be
already,
bed and breakfast. Yeah.
yeah.
But what's also interesting is that they could have. I'm telling. I've been talking about how they could have started the story further on into the
Hmm.
story and got more
Yeah.
into the story. The other way they could have gone is the other way.
Hmm.
In other words, have them in New York, have this couple, care about them, see that he wants out and she wants something else, and then see that the ghosts, and maybe but at some point realize that she's going to inherit the property, but
Hmm.
maybe not get to the property right away. And maybe you'd have more time to develop their relationship in New
Hmm.
York, and the ghosts, and why the ghosts don't want somebody to come and understand she's about to inherit this place, even though she doesn't know it yet. I
Hmm.
mean, that's another way to go, where you start earlier instead of later. But
Yeah.
where they started could have worked too. Where they chose to start also could work. But
A huge thing for me too is like she's in the hospital and then they come back from the hospital and he's showing her around now there's contractors showing up and he picked canary yellow, the room that like
yeah,
he painted. So are the
right.
fucking ghosts not there the whole time he's painting the room? Don't they have an idea that of course they're gonna stay? He's painting the
Mm,
room. You don't just do that for nothing, you know what I mean? Like if he's so worried about her,
yeah.
he's at the hospital only, then they don't have any contact with him.
So you know what?
You don't get
What
that
you're
depth.
saying is this is good. We would have this discussion after having written this particular pilot.
Yeah.
We would have this discussion and said, you know what? We've moved this story too quickly.
Hmm.
That might be a real thing. We moved this story too quickly, like this stuff about the canary yellow. That you wanted to have time to develop that. You couldn't do all of this in this 22 or 25, or even if it was a full half hour show.
Yeah.
So do it in shorter segments. Start earlier, take time to develop the kids, develop the ghosts,
Hmm.
develop that they're going to come together, but don't have them come together yet. Then they come together. Then the time when she comes back could have been played out longer, so that the point when he paints the place canary yellow, the ghosts are involved in some way of trying to prevent it or wanting
Hmm.
it or whatever. But the whole thing just moves too fast. Everything's superficial.
Hmm.
Nothing has any substance or depth.
Yeah, you would have seen like it would have been more interesting, right? Like not only does she have this ability to see the ghost now, but when he's painting the room and picking out the paints because it's his like an homage to her. He's concerned about her. He wants her to be happy when she comes back from the hospital. I paid attention. You talked about two colors. I remember you said canary yellow was your favorite. I went out, I got it painted. But how come we don't see a scene where he's painting um, the room and the ghosts are trying to prevent him from moving forward with that step? Like they're not
Mhm.
antagonizing him unless she's around because she can see them. Now if they had done that and antagonized him and he's really struggling with wanting to be there and he starts to think that house is haunted, then they bring her back and she's like, that would be crazy for you to think that I'm the one with the head injury but you're talking crazy, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Then she sees a ghost and starts talking to them thinking that he's just another construction person. They have a full conversation or something like that. and then she slowly starts to realize like, oh, I'm talking to a ghost, you know what I mean, and like how that and now she believes him, but she still wants to stay, he wants to leave, that kind of thing. Then it'd be like a little bit, I don't know, it
I
just
know this is all stuff to discuss. Did they discuss any of this?
yeah, it just doesn't
It's
like
stuff to
wasn't fun
discuss,
for me to
and you know
watch
what?
because I'm like, this is too much stuff to think
There is
about.
no way you could do just the stuff we've been discussing. There's no way you could do it all in one episode. So
Yeah,
they need to do a different kind of pilot.
yeah,
They still the same premise, but they had to do the pilot differently. Either
yeah.
start it much later into the story, they're already there,
Hmm.
and play. Then you have time to play some of these other things, or start it like I said, two stories going on that we
Hmm.
know are connected but haven't come together yet.
Yeah.
That's another way to do it. But did they have any discussions, or did they just knock out something? I'd love to talk to these writers and
Hmm.
find out what happened. How come they both feel so superficial? You're
Yeah.
obviously intelligent people. You're
Yeah. Yeah.
obviously want to
Some
be
of the most
writers
talented.
and
Yeah.
you've beaten the system. You've
Sure.
gotten a script made, which is a great thing. So why are you doing it like this?
Yeah. Yeah. And like how many chefs are in the kitchen? Sometimes that can water a thing down because you're trying to appease to so many different expertise and positions and opinions.
Mm,
Yeah, it didn't, that's the other thing, right? Is it doesn't feel like, um, it doesn't have that feeling of being an original voice, like you don't like when Man Seeking Woman, for example, which I always say
mm,
is like one of my favorite of the more recent shows. That's an original voice, like the comedy, the way they're delivering it, even the direction and stuff, the visuals once you get to that later. But it's definitely an unusual storytelling capability, but it's fun, it's different, you know what I mean? It's got like something in there that's not quite the same as everything else. Big Bang Theory again has like an original take. The ghost thing just didn't seem like an original take, and Schmigadoon is obviously a remake or something like that, so it's not an original take. So I don't know. When I watch scenes like
yeah.
that, it pops you out of the scene, right? Like me watching Ghost the whole time, I'm not trying to be, if a show is like, and it could be just because I know we're going to talk about it, so maybe I'm paying attention for these particular things. But if I'm watching a Queen's Gambit, I'm not analyzing the whole show the whole time. I might analyze a thing or two, but I'm really kind of immersed in the story, and I don't really think about, the wheels aren't turning like that.
Mm,
But I watch a show like Ghost, and these different scenes when they're happening, they just pop me out of the story to be like, well, why are they doing that? That doesn't, that these characters would have aged if they'd have had a psychologist that's been better, if we understood why they're tied to the house, it just, any of that stuff would have been
yeah.
more interesting. Yeah.
It brings me back to the same thing. And this is the point I want to bring forward for this, is that people think of comedies as fluff and
Hmm.
dramas as stories.
Yeah.
And you've got to stop doing that. You got to start thinking of your comedies as stories and characters, and the jokes are the decoration on the tree,
Hmm.
not the whole thing.
Yeah.
Um, you got to start thinking that way. Go all the way to dramedies if it needs to be, but then do Atlanta, which is,
Hmm.
you would never do these superficial choices in Atlanta because you just are thinking differently, I
Hmm.
believe. So I believe it's a mindset that's been drummed into people who've watched these bad comedies forever. It used to be television was a novelty, just putting anything on the air would get people to watch it. You could put a
Hmm.
stick, uh,
Yeah, you can't do
you
that
put
now
a
because
stick in
people
a
expect
piece of clay and
stories.
put it on a desk and put a
Right.
camera on it, and some people would have watched it. But
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just, you got to be more creative now. You just have to. And yes, comedies have traditionally been pretty bad over the history of television, but there've been some great comedies
Sure.
also. And
Of
the great
course, some of the
comedies
best
had
characters.
story and
Hmm.
character and conflict and substance.
Yeah.
And yes, I Love Lucy maybe didn't, but that was way long ago when people were satisfied to have physical business, and silly expressions and stuff was new to them. So it was all right then.
Yeah.
It's not all right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it's just, you're just expecting, after watching, hundreds and thousands of hours of television and movies over the course of a lifetime, you just have a better understanding of, character and development, even if you're not trying, you just,
Mhm.
but if you've paid any attention to it, then you're definitely, at least in my case, it just pops me out of the story. It's not like there's anything wrong with it, what they did per se. I don't feel like they violated anything, but it's just my like you mentioned earlier, your suspension of disbelief. You know what I mean? Like you just can't
No,
get there because
no,
you can't take that ride. And once the
no, you
ride is
can't.
over, it's like, yeah, I'm only thinking about the mechanics of the ride now. I'm not thinking about
And the
the
truth is,
enjoyment
when
of
I
it.
watch something like Matrix,
Hmm.
I get completely taken by
Sure.
into it. And I do, even though none of that's real,
Right.
it's all fantasy.
Hmm.
I was into it. I suspended my disbelief
Of
and
course. Yeah.
cared about the outcome.
Yeah. That's a
So
great
it doesn't
example.
mean you have to do everything that's very realistic. You
Yeah.
just have to be
Certainly.
consistent with the reality you create.
Right.
And that reality has to feel legitimate. So when somebody jumps into that reality, then they can get involved because they can kind of understand it. They
Hmm.
know where things, but when you just random, just don't give it much thought because it's just a fluffy comedy.
Hmm.
Some people still like that, by the way. I don't mean to put it down, but some people are going to watch Schmigadoon and Ghosts and they're going to love it just because, oh, look, they're ghosts. And,
Yeah.
oh, look, they're singing funny. There are people like that still. And yes, you can pander to that audience if you want. And maybe that audience needs entertainment. So I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but that's not what NBC or CBS or ABC is supposed to be in prime time. And that's not what it's certainly not what the streaming networks who are surpassing them by leaps and bounds are doing. They're going for more content. They're just wiping out the networks. In fact, the
Yeah.
networks are trying to become streaming. The Peacock and what is NBC's? They're all trying to get into the
Oh yeah.
streaming
Disney's
and the
in
other
there.
business
Everybody
because
for
they
sure.
know they're
That's the
doomed.
way to go. Yeah.
They know they're doomed. They
Yeah.
don't understand why though. We understand it. We just told you why.
Hey,
They don't know. They don't know. Poor NBC, CBS, ABC. They keep hiring the wrong people to be their creative directors and
yeah.
such. They gotta they gotta train people better. They gotta train people. People have to really look at the shows that were big hits, creatively, by critically, and the ones that some of them weren't like Laverne and Shirley was all physical shtick. It was kind of like a throwback to
Hmm.
I Love Lucy, but so that you can do them,
Yeah.
but
And
sometimes they
sometimes it takes a bit of time for it to grow on you. Like again, I don't always think the pilot is the best example of what a show can be. There's sometimes there's seasons, early seasons that aren't a good example of what the show becomes. Like for whatever reason, I think.
yeah,
But yeah, we only have the opportunity to analyze the pilot because in terms of writing, that's like if you're trying to come up with something original and sell something, that's like the only thing you can go on, right? Is the pilot,
right,
so
right.
it's got to
But
be
what I'm
super
what
important.
I just said when I just mentioned some of these shows that were more physical and
Hmm.
not so cerebral, maybe if that's the right word to use for you without offending anybody, is that
Yeah.
um that's my taste. This
Sure.
show's about Airto and me, our tastes and our attitudes.
Yeah,
So
it's just an opinion. I
I
don't. Mine's
don't
an opinion. It's
never
not even
been a
important.
fan of of I Love Lucy or
Hmm.
of Laverne and Shirley, and
Yeah, totally.
and some people are. Some people love those shows and always
Yeah,
and did. And so
yeah. My
then
cousin
again,
loves I Love Lucy. She loves her. She's got
yeah,
all the like so much
yeah.
memorabilia and stuff. She's way into I Love Lucy. She knows
But
everything there is to
maybe
know
though,
about it.
maybe there's going to be that audience for. I'm
Hmm.
just saying. I look at something like Schmigadoon and see huge potential for it being something that could attract everybody. But
Right.
maybe all they want is that audience that wants the fluff.
Hmm.
And and maybe it will be one of those fluff hits. Like I think Laverne and Shirley was a fluff hit, but
Hmm.
but but people loved it. So whoever did that, you got to give credit. I can't write children's books, and
Hmm.
some people write brilliant children's books, and I admire them for it. So somebody can write a Laverne and Shirley and Happy Days and those shows that did better than Taxi and Cheers in overall numbers.
Yeah.
But I I personally would watch Taxi and Cheers, and we're talking about those kinds of shows that will run 12 years or so and get awards and whatever. But I got to acknowledge there are those shows that are just hits because nobody really even knows why. They throw up stuff on the screen that is simple And some people just, who knows? We're talking about more complex projects. Some people just throw things up. Maybe these will be one of them. Maybe the ghosts, people love the ghosts, the characters who play the ghosts. They
Yeah,
look,
actually, my sister-in-law was saying that she liked it. She brought it up to me out of the blue, and I was not even talking to her about the show. I was
yeah.
talking to her about something else.
So I
She
don't
was
mean
like,
to
"Oh, have
put
you
it
seen Ghost? I
down.
like
I'm
this
just,
show."
if you took my class, this is what I would say. And I'd want, in order to get an A, you have to do the substantial show. But then you might leave my class and sell something like a Laverne and Shirley and make a ton of money while I'm
Hmm.
still teaching at the university. So
Yeah,
it happens. So whatever.
yeah,
You know, these shows got on the air. I haven't had anything on the air for some time now, so I got to give them credit for that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, if it wasn't on the air, we wouldn't have the opportunity to talk about it. So,
Right.
it's like that's first and foremost. Who cares about our opinion? It's just an opinion anyway. It doesn't
Yeah, it's
mean
all
that,
just opinion. And what is entertainment? It makes you feel good.
yeah,
Sometimes it makes you feel bad, and feeling bad makes you feel good. Like
yeah.
horror films that make you scare you. It's still entertainment, but so there's all sorts of things. And I just feel I'm talking to writers, and writers I think care about the substance of their writing. And
Yeah.
then there are people who just want to make the money and just want to write light stuff, or
But here's
really
another thing
love
too.
light stuff,
If you
really
do
love
just
the
want to
light
make
symbol.
money and you want to learn how to write, like say you're like a heady writer who's like writing all this serious stuff, and you're like, how do I make a show that doesn't have that kind of slant to it? I want to practice it. I just want to do jokes, or I just want to, or I have an opportunity to make this kind of show. It's not what I usually do. I mean, you also, it's good. It's a good skill to know like how to do both. You know what I mean? This
Yeah.
is, and how to pinpoint where is a show that something like Big Bang Theory that feels very thin in terms of story. And I'm sure there's probably some episodes that have really, a lot of story to it. But how is it that it's able to survive, the interest level throughout the show and keep you kind of tied in? And that's mainly for the original take on these jokes, like that's part of the draw right there. So,
Mhm.
how do you do
I
that?
know how hard they work for their
Hmm.
jokes, and I think that's why the show lasted. I think it ran
Yeah.
12, 13, maybe longer
Mm,
years, but
yeah.
and went off the air only because some of the actors decided they didn't want to do it anymore. It would have run forever because the joke level was pretty well maintained.
Hmm.
Like they had solid jokes, probably 3 jokes a page, just like the old days.
Yeah.
And you laughed a lot, and you didn't think about, oh, so all he did was flirt with Penny. She made a bad dinner, and she felt
Hmm.
bad, and he made her feel better. You
Yeah.
go, well, that's not what you were watching for. You're watching for all the laughs that happened while all that was taking place. So,
Yeah.
um,
And the fact that, like I never was jumped out of the story to be like, well, what are they doing this for? Or like, why is this character being introduced? I never ran into those issues. I just thought, yeah, well, I mean, all he does is try to retrieve her TV, lets her use a shower. It's not really the most in-depth story, but I was more entertained watching that. I would watch more of that than I would watch probably some of these other shows.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I watched the first episode of Big Bang Theory, and I'll watch more. And again,
Hmm.
that's not my cup of tea. It's not the kind of comedies I like the most.
Yeah.
I like more character driven and less more character and story driven. But I have to say that the comedy and the sensibility, and they really didn't do things that really violated their own reality much. So
Hmm.
there was a sense of their story structure.
Hmm.
It was maybe kind of simple. Their stories were thin, but there was a sense of their story structure of being consistent with it.
Hmm.
And their
Yeah.
jokes were very strong, and they were consistent with all that for the whole run.
Right.
And so I would watch it. If I were home and it was on the air, I'd probably turn it on,
Yeah. That's
but I wouldn't
interesting.
turn on these two shows.
That's the fun thing about analyzing shows is like it kind of gives you an appreciation about shows that you maybe not had like really invested that much energy in before, and you're like, okay,
Yeah.
well, in comparison, like yeah, that one's actually more fulfilling than this one if you really kind of think it through. So yeah, obviously the analysis of any of that stuff is part of what the draw is in terms of crafting stuff because it's a
Yeah.
way to practice. You're mentally practicing coming up with different scenes, different scenarios, and why do they do this? They should have done this, and that's all kind of part of that exercise, especially being creative. Yeah.
And the strange thing about comedy too is, and you never know what's going to take off and what isn't.
Mm-hmm.
I
Oh yeah,
I
for
wrote a
sure.
comedy about 30 years ago at least called LAX 2194, because when I wrote it, that was about 100 years from, I guess I wrote it in 1994, whatever. I don't
Mm-hmm.
remember, whatever. I just recently got a check for that show.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I wrote it 30 years ago. It never got on the air because it was a
Yeah.
pilot. It never got on the air. And yet I got a check the other day for the show.
Hmm.
And it made me think, first of all, how did anybody see it? But whoever saw it was willing to pay the price to put it on the air wherever it aired so that I got a residual check.
That's interesting.
Just the one pilot, somebody must have loved it.
Yeah.
And yet I couldn't even get it on the air when I did it, and I thought it was a good show. But so who knows? Sometimes you think usually the shows that I feel strongest about don't get picked up. The ones I feel uh, aren't so good do get picked up. I've had 7 pilots get on the air, which is
Mm-hmm.
pretty. That's kind of a lot. I've
Mm-hmm.
had 7. I've written more that have been made into pilots, but 7 of them actually made it to airtime, got on the
Yeah.
air, and of those 7, uh, several of them were things I didn't think were good enough to be on the air myself,
That's funny.
and they got
Yeah.
on. They were not my best projects, and I went, "Oh well, this didn't turn out the way I wanted it to turn out."
Yeah.
And then it gets on the air, and I don't understand it. Don't understand. People have various tastes and likes, and so what we're giving you are our opinions on this show, not what's absolute,
Yeah, definitely.
not rules that are right or wrong. But if you want to write like those kinds of shows, like a Cheers, you got to listen to what we were just saying. If you want to write like Laverne and Shirley, I think they might have gone from first drafts because it was really based on how well the actresses could do their shtick, physical comedy, expressions, takes.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't so much story structure. It was them. It was their mugging and winking and making it work. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe you're going to have that kind of show. You got this actor or actress who's just dynamite, just has it. Um,
Yeah, and that's another thing too, is like the chemistry of the actor. I mean, we're not always, obviously we're not judging from that perspective because that's a whole different discussion. But yeah, I mean, once you get to that discussion, that definitely with Schmigadoon, for example, like I saw more of the acting because I had just read the script, so I watched the show. Now I'm just looking at people acting the roles, and it doesn't feel like they've really imbibed the roles, and they're, they've really become the characters. So that's even from the pilot, even for like something like Queen's Gambit or something, from the pilot, you feel like she is the character once the story gets rolling, and that's
yeah. And
so
you really care about what comes next. You do
hmm
not care what comes next in these 2 shows
yeah, certainly.
unless it's just an escape. And for some people, it is just an escape. You love that you don't think, you just see ghosts and they look funny, and it's in a house, and every once in a while somebody walks through somebody and
hmm
electrocutes them with their walking through them, and they may have funny reaction to that.
hmm
Maybe that's all you want. Maybe you don't want to listen to the story. Maybe you don't even want to listen to the story. It's almost
yeah,
background, like elevator music. So
yeah, yeah, could be,
in which case these shows could both be successful.
yeah.
I don't know, but
But I
that was
will.
my opinion. I have no more to say. Good night.
Yeah, I think, yeah, we've kind of reached the end of that, but yeah, we'll figure out maybe with the next show we watch or something like that. It'll be because we were giving a lot of praise to a lot of shows. I mean, eventually it was going to come
Most of the
down to,
shows, I can't
yeah,
remember. I can't remember panning 2 shows
hmm
in our same review.
yeah,
Usually we like one or the other, but usually we like both of them to
yeah.
varying degrees. But we
So
both didn't like these two that are successful and on the air. So
maybe we'll get back to another show that we really enjoy, and there's always, and like there's good things and bad things about each show, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what we should do.
I want to mention this again. I may have mentioned it once before, but I was involved in the pilot of Cheers, which ran for 12 years, only
Yeah,
ended when people wanted to leave, not because it didn't have good ratings.
yeah,
And I've shown it to students, and my students don't like the pilot at all. They think the pilot's boring. So the pilot wouldn't sell to this generation.
yeah.
And yet the pilot did all things that I thought were right at the time and succeeded to get the show on the well, it was the show was committed to be on the air, but it succeeded in starting off a run of a series that ran for 12 years as the #1 comedy on the air for a while. Um, but I've shown it to 3 classes, and all 3 I've only shown it 3 times, 3 classes, and 3 classes didn't like it at all,
Hmm.
the pilot.
Yeah.
And by the way, the pilot also won an Emmy for best episode that year. So what does that tell you? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. And you had to introduce a lot of characters in the pilot, you have to you guys had did you still have Cliff at that time, or was Cliff in
Yeah,
the
Cliff was in
pilot?
the pilot,
And then you
sure.
had Norm, you had Sam, Diane, and then you have to introduce. There's more of a story there, in terms
There
of
was a
why
pretty big
Diane is
story why she
why she
stays there,
stays. Yeah,
and you left out Carla was
yeah.
there.
Carla was there, and Coach was
Um,
there.
Coach was there. Yeah, a lot of
Mhm,
people, but
yeah. And they're very
gosh, it just
interesting,
didn't.
distinct personalities. You don't feel like you're just kind of getting like, and yeah, it was just much more
But my
in it.
students, when they watch it, I say, well, "Why don't you like it?" They said, "It's too slow. It's boring.
Interesting. They say it's slow.
The characters are too unrelatable." And I'm like,
Hmm.
"Gosh, I really have things changed that much?" Because I talk to my students about the scripts they write, and they have the same problems, same concerns that we've always had. So
Hmm.
I don't think that's changed. But for some reason, Cheers as a pilot does not hold up. And
Hmm.
so there's a weakness I have because I can't tell you why. I can't tell you why it doesn't hold up. It seems like it should still hold up.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of biased because I've seen every Cheers episode, so so really, I can't imagine it not, being something that keeps people going. I do, like I could see maybe like in terms of the humor or the focusing interest on what's happening at that time maybe has
Yeah.
changed, so I can't really say, like in terms of even like
Well, it
somebody
wasn't
kids
about
not
it
being able to
was
relate to somebody talking on the phone, like hold on, let me get the phone for you, and they put the phone on hold, like people
you're
are,
right. That might have some people
stuff
might
like
have
that.
tuned out at that point. Yeah, they're talking on a regular phone and
Yeah,
they're
there's a
dressed
pay phone that they
differently,
go
and
to all the time.
maybe they just tuned out. Maybe they weren't even
Yeah,
listening or watching the show.
yeah,
I
like
don't
people have
know.
probably don't, some kids probably have never seen a payphone, like, and they have a payphone in
Uh-huh.
Cheers.
Yeah, they do have pay phone cheers.
So
Yeah.
it's like one of those things that maybe they're like, what would you pay for a phone for, or why are you not taking pictures with your phone, which is who knows.
Who knows? And it was only 3 classes. Maybe I just coincidentally picked the 3 classes that wouldn't
Yeah,
like it, and maybe the next 3 would have loved it. But so I
yeah,
don't know for sure. I just know I was surprised that an Emmy-winning episode of a series that ran for 12 years was considered boring to these students.
yeah,
I
that's
think
crazy.
boring is the word they use mostly. Yeah, boring.
That's crazy. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Um,
Doesn't make any sense. But hey, I gotta run right now because I gotta take care of something real quick because it started raining, so I have to go
oh, good.
slide through the.
Okay, so everybody, happy birthday. Oh,
Yeah, who should we happy
who lives
birthday?
here?
I think Santa, maybe Santa's birthday. Is Santa's birthday on the 25th, or is he just?
Oh no, that's not Santa.
That's not Santa.
No,
Oh,
so
okay.
we don't know when Santa was born. I think Santa existed forever. I don't know.
Oh, interesting.
That'd be an
Kind of timeless.
interesting to find out when was Santa born?
Yeah.
But God, there's this controversy about this new book about a black Santa who has a gay husband. Have you heard about that one?
No. No.
It's a book for kids. It
Oh, shit,
it
man.
is a book for kids, and it seems like it might be over their head, but maybe there's
Yeah.
something
Why?
sweet and innocent about that they don't really get why there's any concern about it at all. It's just the black Santa just has darker skin than the lighter Santa, but they're both married and one is the other's husband. And I don't know, it gets very
Fuck.
confusing, but
Yeah.
I don't know where Christmas fits into that, but I'm curious about it. The book's starting to sell better because so many people are upset by it. So,
So, I don't know.
yeah.
So anyhow, let's say Merry Christmas. I mean, not Merry Christmas. Now you're screwing me up, Froggy. um, a happy birthday to Angela.
Angela.
Happy
All right.
birthday, Angela.
Yeah.
And we will
Angela.
see you soon.